Transitional words in sequence is a highly structured method of writing instruction for the frustrated writer who struggles to write logically and coherently. Transitional words in sequence is also relevant for the writer that's new to the English language. This series of PowerPoint video presentations is for students and teachers, and it covers the following topics: how to write a paragraph with the topic sentence and supporting details, how to read for relevant textual evidence, how to write with textual evidence, how to use textual evidence to craft a thesis statement, and finally how to compose a text-based analytical essay with an introduction and conclusion. Transitional Words in Sequence is a series of 4 PowerPoint video presentations. For a description of the PowerPoint presentations and a copy of the PowerPoints, please go to magichatwritinginstruction.com. Today we're going to start with the introduction, which is a brief overview of transitional words in sequence. Transitional words in sequence, lesson number 1, introduction. The objective: to understand the purpose of transitional words in sequence. Do not need handouts for this presentation. A copy of this presentation can be found at magichatwritinginstruction.com. So let's take a look at an actual writing prompt and the response to the writing prompt without transitional words in sequence. The prompt is: should cell phones be allowed in school? The response: cell phones are not a good thing because they are a distraction and they also have lots of games. Cell phones go off at bad times and get in the way of work, and cell phones are very expensive. Not really a bad response. Substantively, it's okay. There's lots of ideas there. However, the method in which the ideas are presented needs work. There's only 2 sentences. There's no topic sentence. There's no supporting detail. This should be broken up into more sentences. There should be a more developed main idea or topic sentence, and then there should be supporting details. So let's see how transitional words in sequence will take us from this jumbled up mess to something that's more coherent and presentable. So here we go, transitional words in sequence, and the same prompt: should cell phones be allowed in school? Notice that each sentence now begins with a very specific word phrase. These word phrases help present and organize the ideas in the response. As a rule, cell phones should not be allowed in school. For example, they are a distraction. In other words, students play games on their phones instead of focusing on their schoolwork. Furthermore, cell phones are very expensive and make other students jealous. On the whole, cell phones have no place in school. We've taken basically the same ideas from the previous response. We've cut them up, split them up, and made them much more presentable. How? By using transitional words in sequence. Let's take a better look at exactly how that works. This is a brief overview of the first handout that the student will receive when doing transitional words in sequence. As you can see, there are 5 categories. Each category has a number. The number corresponds to the number of the sentence within the paragraph. So category number 1, generalize, is the first sentence in the paragraph. Category number 2, example, second sentence in the paragraph. Category number 3, restatement, third sentence in the paragraph. And the same with 4 and 5. Now, within each category there are certain specific word phrases. The student must choose a word phrase from the category, and know it or not, the student will then necessarily be writing with logical purpose. So, the student goes to sentence number 1. They must choose from the generalized category. This student has chosen the phrase as a rule. Whether they know it or not, the student is now writing the topic sentence. Then the student proceeds to category number 2 and finds an example phrase. In this case, the most basic one: for example. Student is writing evidence. The evidence will support the topic sentence. You can see each category has a specific logical purpose. So, once the student has become familiar with the categories and the word phrases and has internalized the logic, the student will no longer need to think about how to write a topic sentence. He or she will simply write the topic sentence. And that goes for the supporting details, the restatement, and the summation as well. So let's take one more look at the response without transitional words and sequence and the response with transitional words and sequence. The thing that you should notice here is that substantively the two responses are not that different. What transitional words and sequence does is it forces the writer to break his or her thoughts up, present them logically and coherently. In the process of splitting up your thoughts, the writer will actually begin to elaborate and perhaps see things that he or she did not see without transitional words and sequence. In this way, transitional words and sequence helps the writer become more articulate and nuanced in his or her response. Now, transitional words and sequence is so much more than writing a basic 5-sentence paragraph. In fact, the 5-sentence paragraph is really just the first building block in a much larger process. Here we have a prompt that shows how transitional words and sequence can be used with textual evidence. The prompt: use evidence from the article by Jasakya and explain why cell phones should be banned from school. On the whole, Jasakya, a former high school teacher, thinks cell phones should be banned from school. For one thing, Ms. Sakya notes that a student with a cell phone is an uninterested student, one with a short attention span, who cares more about socializing than education. Then we get our citation, Article 1. In other words, cell phones prevent the students from focusing on the teacher. Furthermore, cell phones are intended to help students socialize, not learn. To conclude, cell phones are a distraction and have no place in the classroom. So, it's the same basic 5 categories, same word phrases. The difference now is that we are inserting our textual evidence or quotation into the second sentence. You can see that the categories and the logical purpose that proceeds or stems from the categories helps the student analyze the evidence. So, evidence dropped into that second sentence. Third sentence, restatement, helps the student articulate, internalize, and explain that evidence. The fourth sentence, the student paraphrases and brings in additional information. And then we have a summation or concluding sentence which re-emphasizes the topic sentence and really helps the paragraph resonate in the mind of the reader. Transitional words and sequence is a lot like the scaffolding on the side of a building. The scaffolding is necessary to erect the structure, but it's not part and it shouldn't be part of the finished product. Well, transitional words and sequence will help you get the confidence to write fluently, articulately, and logically. Transitional words and sequence will help give you the confidence to write with textual evidence, to craft a thesis, to write an analytical essay. But for your writing to really flourish and resonate in the mind of the reader, you're going to have to infuse your writing with individuality and creativity. In order to do that, you're going to have to take compositional risks. So transitional words and sequence will hopefully get you the confidence that you'll need to get to that place where you can take compositional risks, but you're going to be on your own as far as giving your writing personality and that vivid quality that it will need to really stand out. I'll say it again, transitional words in sequence is simply about gaining confidence. So go in order through these presentations. Take your time. Complete the suggested writing prompts. That is so important because the way to internalize these prompts, the way to gain confidence using transitional words in sequence is through repetition and patience. Don't rush through these presentations. Take your time. Stop when you need to stop. Get the handouts all ready. Make sure you really internalize and process the information that I'm trying to give you so that it sticks with you. Go in order. It's key to go in order. Transitional words in sequence, lesson number 2 is next. That sentence starters in sequences. That lesson has 3 parts. Go in order through each of those 3 parts. After that, go on to writing with textual evidence. There are 3 videos for that. Go in order. Make sure you go through each of those 3 videos in order. Finally, you'll end with crafting the thesis statement and essay. There's 2 videos and a culminating writing project. By the time you get to that final writing prompt, you'll have accumulated transitional words in sequence, categories, word phrases, the ability to write with textual evidence, so you would be ready to write an analytical essay comparing two different texts with a thesis statement and body paragraphs and a conclusion. So let's get to that point where you have the confidence to tackle anything that your teachers throw your way.